Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says India's diplomatic boycott of Winter Olympics applauded in US. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. First up, what do we understand by Winter Olympics? Winter Olympics is sports competition. This is played on ice or snow. It includes sports like ice skating, ice hockey, skiing and figure skating, and this happens every 4 years. So this event is conducted once every 4 years, and participants, sportsmen and women, participate in this event which happens every 4 years. The first time Winter Olympics took place was in the year 1924. Where did it take place? It took place in Chamonix in the country of France. India for the first time participated in this event in the year 1964. So for the first time, India participated in the Winter Olympics in 1964, and from then India has been participating in the Winter Olympics continuously. So remember, these are some of the important factual data when it comes to the Winter Olympics. Why are we discussing this? That is because the 2022 edition of the Winter Olympics is currently taking place in China. It is happening in China, which is why it is called as Beijing Winter Olympics. In this particular Olympics, what is the most controversial issue? Many of the countries have diplomatically boycotted, which means that there are countries whose government representatives will not be part of this Beijing Winter Olympics. Let us try and understand what is this issue all about. Back in the year 2021, in the month of December, we had United States of America, which had also said that it is planning to diplomatically boycott the Winter Olympics, and many other countries like United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Japan, New Zealand and Netherlands have also said that they would want to boycott it diplomatically. When it comes to a boycott, there are two types of boycott. What is it? One is what is called as complete boycott. The other is what is called as diplomatic boycott. Present situation, most of the countries have diplomatically boycotted it, and India has also followed the suit where, similar to other countries, India has also said and announced a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. Now the question is, what is the difference between a complete boycott and a diplomatic boycott? When it comes to the complete boycott, there will be no officials representing that country in the official games. There will be no participants. There will be no sportsmen and sportswomen. So when it comes to the complete boycott, the country as a whole will not be represented in that event. Let's say, for example, back in the year 1979, Russia's occupation of Afghanistan at the end of 1979, 42 countries boycotted the 1980 games in Moscow, and as a result, Russia also had to give it back as a response. So Russia and 19 other countries stayed away from the Los Angeles game. So what is happening in complete boycott? The officials of that particular country do not take part in the event. The participants, the sportsmen and women, do not take part in this particular event. So there is complete boycott where the country is not represented at this official sporting arena. That is what is called as complete boycott. Then we have something called as diplomatic boycott. What is this diplomatic boycott? This is where countries will not send their high ranking officials. Countries will not send official government delegations. So participants, sportsmen and women would be able to participate in this particular event, but they would not have government officials being represented from that particular country. So in the present situation, India, United States and all these countries have what is called as diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. So in the diplomatic boycott, you would have the sportsmen and women, you would have the sports people who would be representing the participants, would be representing the country, but these government officials will not represent the country. That is what is called as diplomatic boycott. Why are countries boycotting? What is the importance of this boycott? Is it only political in nature, or it can also hurt a country hosting this particular event also economically as well? Let us try and understand. When it it comes to a boycott, it can be a political affair. In the present situation, we have United States of America, which has diplomatically boycotted. Why? Because it feels that there are grave human rights issues when it comes to the Xinjiang province. India has also boycotted this particular issue. Why? Because India feels that the Chinese soldier involved in the Galvan incident was made an Olympic torchbearer. So what should have happened? China should not have done it. It has sent a political message where a sporting event is more about bonhomie, it is more about competition, it is more about goodwill, and it is about competition in a rightful manner. Since China is using its political tool, India feels that the sporting event, which should not have been a political event, is being showcased as a political event, which is why India has withdrawn and has not sent any of its government officials. So basically, what do we have is that all these countries also feel that because China is doing something of political nature, we are not sending our government officials. Similarly, there are many other countries which also feel pandemic issues are also a problem, and at the same time, we have one of the Chinese tennis player called as Peng Shuai. Peng Shuai happens to be an international Chinese professional tennis player. She had accused high-ranking Communist Party member of sexual assault. So a person who was part of the Communist Party of China, he had sexually assaulted Peng Shuai. The minute she made these allegations on the Chinese social media platform, the posts were immediately taken down. She immediately disappeared from the public view for many days, sparking concerns of the safety as well. So this means when a sports person does not have the security, why should countries oblige to China is another way of looking at it. So on one side, it is of political in nature, which is why countries are opposing it. On the other side, there are also economics as well. Let's say, for example, in the present situation, because United States of America has diplomatically withdrawn, or United States of America followed by other countries like United Kingdom have also withdrawn, what would happen? China would also be hit economically as well. Not to the gravity when there is complete boycott, but to a minimal extent. How does it hit economically? That is because whenever there is a sporting event, what would happen? There will be large number of sponsors. These sponsors would have invested in this particular event, and this particular event would be broadcasted as well. That is how TRP comes. That is how revenue generation happens. An ad would be showcased, and that is how the whole generation of revenue happens when a particular event is broadcasted. Now, since countries like United States of America, United Kingdom have withdrawn, broadcasters may not show it in their country, which means that that country which is hosting this particular event, its sponsors may also suffer as well. And when it comes to India, Doordarshan has decided not to telecast live the opening and closing ceremonies of winter games, which might impact the TRP of that particular event, which is why countries have taken up this particular decision. How has China reacted to this? China has said that it is not bothered about this particular event, and it says that all those countries boycotting diplomatically may also in the near future pay a price for it. What are the positives of the diplomatic boycott? You have many countries who are boycotting the Winter Olympics diplomatically, which means that China in the near future may be accountable for its human rights actions. If many countries, in fact, you also have the European Parliament, which has also warned the EU governments as well, that China will have to demonstrate improvement in the human rights situation. If it does not do, in the near future, there can be some of the trade agreements which can also be left out by the European companies. Added to this, there might also be constant stare on what China is doing, what are its human rights issues, and as a result, the global community can come together and question about the human rights practices in China, which is the positive aspect of the diplomatic boycott. On the other side, there is a negative issue as well. How? In the near future, whenever there is Winter Olympics, let's say in United States of America or in Australia, some of the companies or the sponsors of the event who have their base in China may not sponsor in in United States of America. So United States of America or Australia or countries which have been boycotting this particular event may also face the heat of sponsorship, and at the same time, in spite of all these warnings, in spite of repeated interventions by the international community, China continues to violate the human rights in the Xinjiang province, which means China does not pay importance to the rules based order, to the international community, and it continues to perform its actions as it wishes. So, on one side, this diplomatic boycott may throw some light on what is happening in China, but in an indirect way, it has its own share of limits where China continues to posture aggressively, may not listen to other countries, and will continue its activities as per its own whims and fancies. So basically, this diplomatic boycott is where the government officials will not be part of the sporting event, but you will have participants who would be able to participate. They would be able to win medals for their country, and they would also have individual prospects as well. So this on one side may hit China, and on the other side may also not hit China because of its aggressive posturing. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about the CPEC project. Before we understand what is this all about, let's have a brief idea with respect to the background. Both India and Pakistan became independent in the year 1947. They also established diplomatic relationship with China in the 1950s and 51. When we look into the initial few years after our independence and after China's independence, what happened? We had two powerhouses. One was in the form of United States of America, the other was in the form of Soviet Union. When it comes to United States of America and its policies, you had Pakistan supporting the United States of America. Pakistan was also part of Seato and CENTO as well, which means in the initial years after independence, Pakistan was more towards United States of America and did not have good relationship with China. But what was happening with India? India had a non-aligned approach. India also was against the colonial practices as well. India also came up with the relationship factors with China where it also said Hindi Chini bye bye as well. So immediately after independence, India was having a close coordination with China, but Pakistan did not have that good relationship with China. But everything changed after the 1962 war. What happened? India and China had the 1962 war, and it was during this period that Pakistan also developed close ties with China. In fact, it is also being said that close relationship went on to the next level. Pakistan also became aggressive after the 1962 war, and it had a close relationship with China. In order to appease China further, what did Pakistan do? In the year 1963, they signed an agreement and Pakistan ceded Saksham Valley to China. So remember, the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir back then, now a union territory, is always and will be an eternally part of India. But just for the sake of explanation, these are compartmentalized so that we are able to understand what is the mapping, which area is occupied by which country. So when we are speaking about Saksham Valley is illegally occupied by Pakistan, and after that it ceded this part to China. So currently Saksham Valley is administered by China, and yes, Saksham Valley belongs to India and is officially part of India, but it is taken illegally by Pakistan and was given to China. In this particular agreement, we have to focus on Article 6. What does Article 6 say? The two parties have agreed that after the settlement of the Kashmir dispute between Pakistan and India, the sovereign authority concerned will reopen negotiations with the government of the People's Republic of China on the boundary as described in Article 2 of the present agreement so as to sign a formal boundary treaty to replace the present agreement. So for the first time, a part of India which was illegally occupied by Pakistan, that part was ceded to China. So what happened? So the Saksham Valley, which is officially the part of India, for the first time was given to another country. So the first time where the territorial integrity of India was violated by Pakistan and this part was given to China happens to be with respect to the Saksham Valley. The second is in reference to what is called as the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So remember, the first time that happened was in reference to the Saksham Valley and the second is happening with respect to the CPEC corridor. China and Pakistan have come up with what is called as China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, where basically this part, the Karakoram range or the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, which is officially the part of India, this Gilgit-Baltistan region, which is officially part of India, is where there is an infrastructure project that is being developed violating the territorial integrity of India. The first time it was violated is in reference to the Saksham Valley. The second is now with respect to the CPEC. So what is the CPEC? This is where they are passing through the Karakoram range, which happens to be an official part of India, which is illegally occupied by Pakistan. So basically, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is a 3,000-kilometer long infrastructure project connecting the Xinjiang province, that is from the Kashgar region up until the Gwadar port. So this is a 3,000-kilometer long infrastructure project that connects China's Xinjiang province to the Gwadar port in the western part of Pakistan. So the second time that they are violating the territorial integrity of India is by the CPEC project. So this particular project will shorten the route for China's imports. How? As of now, when you look into how China is importing its oil, it is via a long route. It has to pass through the Indian Ocean, it has to move through the Malacca state, and ultimately it enters its mainland. But now, since the CPEC project, if it is completed, all the imports can happen via this Gwadar port and ultimately this can be transported to China via this particular road and ultimately can enter the Xinjiang province. In order to put this into practice, in order to define Pakistan's role in China's One Belt One Road initiative, they came up with what is called as Karamai Declaration. So what is this Karamai Declaration? We have the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. This China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is part of One Belt One Road initiative of China, and what are the responsibilities of Pakistan are put up in this Karamai Declaration. So remember, the CPEC is part of OBOR, and what are the practices, what are the regulations of Pakistan are present in the Karamai Declaration. So in this particular CPEC, there are two phases. One is what is called as energy projects as well as the road infrastructure phase, which is called as the phase 1, and now what Pakistan and China have entered into is called as the phase 2 project, which is what is currently being signed, which is what is the context all about, and it speaks about industrial cooperation. So if we have to speak about phase 1, what does it speak about? It speaks about energy projects as well as the road infrastructure, where through the CPEC funds, Pakistan has already built new coal-fired power plants. It has already constructed hydroelectric power plants as well. So with the investment made by China, what they have done is constructed the coal power projects and at the same time hydroelectric projects in Pakistan with the assistance of China. Added to this, other projects include railway project from Peshawar to Karachi, a metro project in Lahore, and at the same time, there are also Huawei fiber optic cables that are running from China to Pakistan as well. Such have been the infrastructural developmental programs with respect to phase 1. Then we also have phase 2 project, which is more about industrial cooperation. What is it about industrial cooperation? This will basically attract the foreign direct investments from China. It will also promote industrialization as well, and it will also develop economic zones. There are number of special economic zones. These economic zones will also be developed as part of industrialization. So basically, they will initiate, plan, execute, monitor projects which are both public as well as private in nature. So the phase 1 of the CPEC is where we have the energy projects and the road infrastructure. The phase 2 of the CPEC is what is called as the industrial cooperation. So Pakistan calls it a transformational move where with the investments made by China, it assumes that there will be a large scale infrastructure growth. This will provide ample employment opportunities to its people, and at the same time it will also boost economic growth, says Pakistan. However, it is not going to be easy. There are concerns with respect to CPEC project for Pakistan itself. Why? That is because according to a Pakistani government committee, it has also concluded that Chinese contractors were overcharging when it comes to the energy projects. We did realize that Pakistan and China have come together. They are constructing the energy projects, one with respect to the coal, the other with respect to the hydroelectricity. But the Pakistan government committee says that the amount of charge or the amount of money is quite exorbitant. It is also more as well. China is charging more as well, and ultimately who is the sufferer? It has to be Pakistan, says Pakistan's own government committee. And at the same time, we also spoke about the Gwadar port as well. Gwadar port is being constructed, but this does not have any commercial purpose. It is only meant for China and Pakistan. So how will they get the profits? How will they make the money? And that happens to be a second problem. Added to it, we did also discuss about the railway project. We did also discuss about the Lahore Metro as well. And Lahore Metro, according to number of committee reports, is also not economically viable, says the government report. Added to it, the International Monetary Fund has also gone on to say that the CPEC was contributing to a widening current account deficit when it comes to Pakistan. Why? Because Pakistan as a country does not have much of economic activities running these days. So it is importing billions of dollars of material from China as well. So it has to repay back China, and at the same time it also has to pay interest to China as well, which means the International Monetary Fund has gone on to say that Pakistan is bound to suffer and may also fall in debt trap of China as well. In fact, the locals are also not happy with this particular project. Why? Because it is going through some of the regions, and ideally, what did Pakistan say? Pakistan said that this will lead to development of jobs for this particular people in that particular area, but most of these jobs are also taken by the Chinese people as well. So when there is a project that China initiates, it also gets its own people to execute this particular project. So the locals ideally who should have got the jobs are not getting the jobs. And at the same time, when it comes to the Balochistan, which also has issues with Pakistan, which also has conflict with Pakistan in itself, people also say that there are a lot of minerals and there are also precious stones as well. This is also being taken away by the Chinese, and as a result, the Balochistan people are also against this initiative. So on one side, the job creation which should have happened, employment generation which should have happened, is not happening because it is the Chinese people who are employed, and ultimately all the objectives that should have been envisaged under the CPEC will not be met, says some of the arguments with respect to the Pakistan's viewpoint. How does it help China? China has infused a lot of money, so it would be able to get its energy reserves from the Gwadar port and directly connect it to Xinjiang province, and at the same time it is also having a bonhomie, a relationship with Pakistan as well. And meanwhile, Pakistan, whenever it is designated as a terrorist country, it is China which is protecting Pakistan from the international sanctions, which is why the all-weather friend of Pakistan happens to be China. And at the same time, with the control of the Gwadar port in Pakistan, it also has control in the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. It is also making construction in the Paira port, which is in Bangladesh. So it is encircling India as well, giving rise to this theory of string of pearls coming into reality. So what is the string of pearls? Basically, it is a network of Chinese military and commercial facilities developed by China. It is surrounding India from all angles. On the western side, you have the Gwadar port where China has access to it. On the southern side, you have the Hambantota port where China has access to the Indian Ocean. On the eastern side, it is developing the Paira port, which is in Bangladesh. So indirectly, China has encircled India, and in case there is a war, in case there is an issue on the defense front, in case there is a military confrontation, then China can deploy its troops as soon as possible as well. The CPEC project thus enlarges the China strategic footprint in the Indian Ocean region, and that is why India is also opposing this CPEC project. Apart from it violating the territorial integrity of India as it passes through the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, where Jammu and Kashmir as a whole is an integral part of India, this border dispute is yet not resolved, but China is violating the territorial integrity of India. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about whaling. What is the context? Iceland, one of the only countries that still hunts whales commercially, will end the practice from 2024 as demand for the whale meat dwindles. Why is the demand for the whale meat dwindling? That is because Japan happens to be one of the countries which was importing a lot of whale meat. But however, back in the year 2019, Japan itself withdrew from the International Whaling Commission. It is also now able to explore and also catch the whale as well. So because Japan on its own is contributing to the whale catch, the imports have considerably reduced. The exports from Iceland have also dropped. So the main reason why the demand is dwindling is because Japan has its own catch. Added to this, the extension of a no fishing coastal zone has also made whale hunt more costly as well, which means these whalers will now have to enter offshore. They have to go deep into the sea and ultimately have to get the whale catch as well. They cannot do it along the coastal areas. Further, safety requirements for imported meat were more stringent than the local products, rendering the Icelandic exports more difficult when it comes to this scenario. As the result, what we are actually witnessing is a drop when it comes to whale exports from Iceland. In this particular backdrop, we have to understand one of the important conventions, and that is International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling. So what is this convention all about? This is about the conservation of the whale stocks and also orderly development of the whaling industry. So on one side there is conservation, on the other side there is development of the whaling industry. So what exactly happens? Overhunting will be prevented, regulation of the whaling industry will take place, and at the same time what rules and regulations will have to be taken up will all be governed as part of International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling. To put this into practice, what we require is one of the organizations, authorities and commissions. So the convention's practices will be implemented by the International Whaling Commission. So this happens to be the executive authority called as International Whaling Commission. Where is it headquartered? It is headquartered in Impington near Cambridge, and India is also member to the International Whaling Commission. So remember, according to the preamble of the International Whaling Commission, it has two major objectives. One is the conservation of the whale stocks. The other is the orderly development of the whaling industry. The International Whaling Commission also has the legally binding schedule as well. So this particular schedule will ensure that there are catch limits. It also specifies whale sanctuaries, and at the same time it also puts restrictions on the hunting practices and methods when it comes to the whales as well. So remember, there are two important sanctuaries as declared by this International Whaling Commission. One happens to be the Indian Ocean Whale Sanctuary, which is marked in pink as shown in the image. The other happens to be the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary, which is marked yellow in this particular image. So we have two important sanctuaries. One happens to be the Indian Ocean Sanctuary. The other happens to be Southern Ocean around the Antarctica. Next, what we also have is called as Florianopolis Declaration. Florianopolis happens to be a city in Brazil. International Whaling Commission back in the year 2018 met in Florianopolis, where they discussed and rejected a proposal made by Japan to renew the commercial whaling. As part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section which is the largest whale species. Does this particular convention of International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling include all types of whales, or there are exemptions to the whales as well? Please put it on the comment section. Now let's look into the next article. This article says interrogating the false merit reservation binary. So this article here is speaking about merit versus reservation, which was a recent Supreme Court judgment. This article has already been explained in our earlier CNAs, and the link for the same will also be provided in the description box. However, the article also makes a mention of the formal equality and the substantive equality. Let us try and understand what are the difference. When it comes to the formal equality, what happens? There is this particular law which is applied equally to every single person, irrespective of the race, irrespective of the caste, irrespective of the sex, irrespective of the age. When a law is made, there is no exceptions whatsoever, and this law is applicable equally to every single person. So there is no procedure for the affirmative action, so there is no procedure for the reservation. So every single person is seen equal. So a man and a woman would be seen equal, a person from a minority and the majority will be seen equal. So when a law is made, this law is equally applicable to every single person. There are no exceptions, there are no exemptions. That is what is called as formal equality. A law is made and it is equally applicable to every single person, and that takes into picture the well-being of individuals, and the community is not brought into picture when it comes to the formal equality. But there is something called a substantive equality. What happens in substantive equality? In substantive equality, we can also bring in another term called as equity. What exactly happens? Because of the historical injustice that is present, a certain community may get an advantage of affirmative action. One such example is the exception that we have in Article 15, where women can be treated differently, children can be treated differently, and you also have reservation for the SC and the ST community. So when it comes to the formal equality, an SC ST will be equivalent to that of a general merit, so there is no reservation whatsoever. But when it comes to the substantive equality, what would happen? Some reservation would be given for the women, some reservation would be given for the SC ST, some reservation may be given for the minorities. So because there has been an historical injustice committed on such people, which is why a reservation or an affirmative action is done, which is what is called as substantive equality. So this article makes a difference between the formal equality and the substantive equality. But for the rest of the analysis, we would give you a link which is already discussed, so kindly look into it. Now let's look into the next article. This article says India calling with quite a lot of trade in mind. The article here is speaking about the free trade agreement between India and United Kingdom. The same has also been explained in our previous CNAs. The link will be given in the description box, so kindly look into it. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. Many countries have announced a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. What can a diplomatic boycott achieve, and what are its limits? Next question. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is envisaged as a transformational project in Pakistan, is unlikely to ever fulfill the aspirations of the people. Substantiate. So please write all your answers on the comment section, peer review, and do give positive feedback to your fellow aspirants answer. If you also wish to upload an image, you can visit our website and upload an image as well. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.